Hey guys, I'm Jordan Fromer. I believe in hunting hard, hunting smart, and having a fun time while doing it. And shooting limits, well, that's just the icing on the cake. I revel in the journey just as much as the successes it brings. From ducks to dogs to decoys and guns, we'll be talking tactics, strategies, and what it takes to get the job done. Load up and take aim. This is the Duck Gun Podcast.
What's going on, folks? Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Duck Gun Podcast. We're going to have an awesome guest tonight. We got Nate from Falling Tide TV lined up, and we got some great subjects, categories. These are some weird words to describe, but we got some great stuff we're going to be talking about. Everything from diver hunting to Cajun foods and how that lines up with waterfowl. What else we talk about, Hunter? I'm sure there's some.
That's most of it was a lot of it was foodie stuff, honestly.
Right. There was a lot of foodie stuff. We talked about the Mississippi a lot. So it was a great conversation with Nate. Great guy. And a great waterfowl hunter from the state of Louisiana. So stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, it is spring, almost summer. And a great time to be out in nature. I've been chasing the turkeys hard and having turkey hunting is growing on me more and more every year. Just loving being out there in the watching kind of spring come alive. And I don't know, man, I love turkey hunting. So it's just becoming more and more of something that I'm enjoying every spring. So you haven't got out and turkey hunted, though, have you, Hunter?
No, I haven't been out a single morning yet. And honestly, it probably won't happen again this year. So it is what it is, but I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Well, you do enough waterfowl hunting to not have to hunt the rest of the year. So, but one of these times I'm going to get you on a turkey hunt. I almost got you. You came through picking up a new 2-man layout boat, which I might not want to admit it, but I'm excited to hunt out of that this fall. So hopefully we shoot some mallards out of it.
I mean, we could. That was quite the trip, honestly. I mean, for a little bit of reference, I drove 4 hours to you one night, and then I spent 16 hours in the car the next day driving up to where the boat was and then back down to my house just to go to bed and wake up, go back to work.
Right. That's a long day, man. That's a long day. So
yeah. I mean,
but you got to get out and do some springtime scouting today.
Yeah, some like scouting, driving around, pretty much just checking out different areas. We have high water right now, or higher than like our normal water level for season. So I'm able to get back to some holes I wouldn't normally be able to get to. Some of the spots we would normally drive the boat, then walk in. I'm able just to drive the boat straight in, check out, see how it's all looking, and check out some veg stuff. And man, we're already seeing, I shouldn't say already, some of the goslings groups we saw were pretty big. I mean, like they were already the size of small chickens is what I'm going to call them, right? They're still fuzzballs. They still can't fly or anything like that. But we didn't see any baby ducks today, but we did see quite a bit of geese, a lot of wood ducks paired up, a couple teal that were paired up around here, which I know we've talked about this in the past. Pretty rare I see teal in nesting pairs here. I only saw one group of mallards in a nesting pair, but we were kind of in like the wood ducky sloughs, stuff like that. But a lot of geese. I mean, like a lot of geese. Every time we turn a corner on a grass flat, there was 5 or 6 pairs of geese with, nests 50 yards away from each other, all along the water's edge.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited about all that.
Right. It's kind of funny how even in in the off season, some of my buddies give me a hard time because I'll be like, "Oh, there's a goose," it's flying in, this, that. Like, as a diehard waterfowl hunter, it never gets old. Seeing waterfowl, watching them fly. It's a kind of an odd thing that I noticed about myself, and I've told other people this as well. But like, once you duck hunt, you'll never look at any other bird the same way. It's almost like you can't look at them when they're flying because you're like, almost like judging like how they're going to cup in, and like even if it's like a finch or something, which is it's so odd, like how your brain just kind of takes over and puts it into like waterfowl hunting perspective. But we're standing there tonight, with some of my buddies, and they're talking, and I was just having a hard time paying attention because in this hayfield, it's like geese just, honking and just cupping in just from, a mile away. I'm like, man, if this was September, cause it's like the right temperature and the right, almost the right kind of feel for that. I was like, we'd be in that field and geese would be cupping right into us. So
yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I'll also say too, is that the last couple of years I've made an effort to try to like learn more about the outdoors around me. Cause like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like know that much about it. Like I can't look at a tree and be like, oh, this is a certain tree. Like there's some that I can, but there's others I'm like, wood, like it's a tree that's made of wood.
Right.
And that's what and I've been trying to make an effort to learn that type of stuff, learn the different birds that are out there. And so I'm just sitting there and like, I literally was today, I had a bird identification book because where I was at has no phone service. And I'm just like waiting for a bird to land. I'm like flipping through it really fast, trying to figure out what bird it is. But yeah, I mean, like I've been doing that kind of stuff. And like I said, today we were checking out some of the eelgrass is growing up already where we shoot cans. So that's exciting. Some of the smartweed hasn't come up yet because the water level is still too high. So I'm kind of hoping that we've had high water levels, kind of hoping the water falls back about a foot or two. That'll bring some of that stuff out of the water that's been under the water for the last couple months. Right. So it'll make that stuff. The barnyard grass is starting to peek through on spots where we get the barnyard grass. So, I mean, we're looking pretty good, honestly. They're expecting it to be dry here in about a month. So if it does dry out like that, then we're going to have good food and everything else. Just a matter of if we can flood again in the fall.
Right. Yeah. It's good to see those high water, after, it seems like the last few years, at least of drier conditions in here locally as well. And it's good to kind of see that higher, water and seeing stuff flooded. And I know that, that definitely helps with habitat and hatch and all that good stuff for duck hunting. So, and I think I saw on a post as well that North Dakota had, got some recent rains that are going to help with the hatch out there too, which it was a big concern early on in the year. So, definitely looking up on a lot of things. So should be good.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Let's go ahead and get a word from our partners.
Just real quick. When do ducks actually start laying their nests and stuff? I don't actually know the time frame. I know that, like I said, I'm seeing geese already, but I haven't seen any ducklings or anything like that yet. Do you know when they actually start laying nests and everything?
I think it should be right about now. Yeah. That they should be laying nest, and I know they'll re-nest and all that if they have failed nest attempts. But as far as the exact date, I'm not sure, but it does seem that late in May, a lot of times we're seeing, ducklings in my area.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah. Alrighty. So let's get a quick word from our partners, and then we'll grab Nate and jump into all of the duck hunting conversations we got planned. So first off, I'd like to give big thanks to Onyx, guys. Onyx is the app for waterfowl hunters right there in the palm of your hands. Makes everything simple, from knowing what's public and private, knowing the boundaries of your private land, knocking on doors and getting permission. I've been using it heavily again this year for turkey season and waterfowl. Did end up snagging a new spot this year, all thanks to being able to find the landowner for that field quick and easy, knock on the door and get that permission. So if you're not using Onyx, definitely go over there, check it out. You won't ever know how to hunt and figure out your spots without it again. So definitely consider checking that out. Also like to give a big thanks to Weatherby. Yes, Weatherby is changing the game when it comes to waterfowl shotguns. They've been coming with new models, new shotguns, and really putting an effort into having good options for the waterfowl hunter. From the Element to the 18i to now new, they have the Sorex as well. And the Orion side by sides. They got some great options for the duck hunter. So when you're in the market for waterfowl shotgun, when you need to get your new waterfowl shotgun, consider Weatherby. You won't regret it. Also like to give a big thanks to Final Approach, guys. Final Approach is the one-stop shop for the duck hunter. They got blinds, they got decoys, they got waders, they got silhouettes, they got A-frame blinds. You name it, guys. It's off season. We need to get our list together before season. of things that we need to either replace or upgrade or new strategies, new solutions. And Final Approach is the one-stop shop for you guys to get that gear that you need. So check them out over there at fabrand.com and use code DuckGun for a 10% off discount. Also like to give a big thanks to Motion Ducks, guys. Motion Ducks, the jerk rig on steroids. And guys, it is it's the solution that you need for those no-win days. So many guys, I feel like, don't take that in consideration. Once you try it, you won't be going back. You won't be leaving for a hunt without the Motion Ducks, or, it's a jerk rig, but better. Sets up in minutes, puts that lifelike motion in your spread and helps you finish those wary mallards when it seems like nothing else will. So check them out over there. Go to motionducks.com/DuckGun Chronicles and use code DuckGun10. That'll get you a free anchor bag and a discount code on your purchase over there with Motion Ducks. Alrighty, let's go ahead and jump on in the conversation with Nate. What's going on, folks? Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Duck Gun Podcast, the podcast where you learn to be a better waterfowl hunter. Tonight, we got a special guest. We got Nate coming back to join us, and we're going to be talking all about his hunting and his life in Louisiana, a very, in my opinion, a very interesting waterfowl part of the country. Alongside, per usual, got the co-host, Hunter, King of the Cans. So we're going to jump right into it. So how you doing tonight, Nate?
I'm doing great, guys. How are y'all?
Doing great.
Yeah, just living the dream.
Another day in paradise.
Yeah.
Is that what you say, Hunter?
Yep, another beautiful day in paradise.
There we go. Trying to steal his term. But yeah, we're excited to have you on, Nate. We just had you on not too long ago for the Wood Deck Wisdom episode, which neither one of us came out victorious. So we won't talk about anybody else. But
yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh yeah, definitely. But tonight we're going to go a little bit more in depth into Louisiana duck hunting and, well, just duck hunting in general. And I know you guys, Hunter and Nate, are both diver connoisseurs. So I'm sure that'll be a topic as well to look forward to. But let's just start off with a general introduction. Nate, he is the host and the creator of his YouTube series, show, whatever you want to call it nowadays, Falling Tide TV, and based in Louisiana. And you get on some really cool, unique hunts in that place, and it's must watch content. So anything I left out that you'd like to kind of add to anybody who hasn't heard any of the previous podcasts you've been on, to introduce yourself?
No, I think you pretty much covered that. I would say that, my diver hunting is something that's actually fairly new to me, believe it or not. We targeted mostly puddle ducks whenever I was growing up, but as things changed, as things changed, we kind of had to go over to the diver side, which I've actually found a new love for. I think they're very special birds. They're hardy birds. I have a lot of respect for diving ducks. And the only other thing I would say is, my channel is not all just duck hunting. We do a whole lot of other things too. We go out and catch shellfish. We go catch catfish,
crabs.
Yeah. I've
been watching
crabbing.
Some of your crab videos lately.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. We do all kind of things down here in Louisiana, and I like to show that, to the world. So
how good is crab to eat?
Delicious. I mean,
I've never had crab.
Best seafood you ever eat.
Really?
Yeah, in my opinion, anyway.
How's it compared to like popcorn shrimp?
Oh man, come on!
I'm just messing. I know that's a disgrace to like actual real seafood, which you're going like above and beyond, because you're going out and like catching it yourself fresh. Which that's definitely interesting to me. We don't have crab anywhere around here, so that's cool. What's walk us through the process. Then we're gonna start off. we're going to start off a little different, but walk us through the process that you have for your crab catches.
So the way that there's a lot of different ways to catch crabs, but the way that we like to do it is we go out on a pier. We have we might have a number of nets. We call them set nets, or ring nets or whatever you want to call them, where you attach a piece of chicken to it and you put it down in the water. The crab is attracted to the chicken. They get on top of the net and you pull it up and you catch the crab in the net. And while we have those setting, what we have is hand lines is what we call them, where we just take a piece of string and we tie a chicken leg to it and toss it down there in the water. The crabs are really greedy and they hold on to that chicken. They hold on to it for dear life. And so what you can do is you can actually pull them up to the surface and scoop them with a dip net. And it's both methods used together. It's very effective. And usually we can pull out a few dozen crabs at the very least and take them home and boil them with the family. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice. So it's like a net positive gain for the chicken you lose.
Yeah, I'll take crabs over chicken any day.
Nice, very nice. And so, what's your go-to way for cooking the crab?
Oh, just a traditional boil. I just use Louisiana. It's called Louisiana brand boil mix, and you just boil them in that. I don't do anything crazy with the crabs. I think the crab meat tastes just fine how it is. You don't have to do a whole lot of doctoring to it. Like crawfish, I kind of throw the kitchen sink in there with crawfish, but crabs, very simple. Might put some lemon and some garlic in there with them, and that's about it. Bring them up to a boil for about 5 minutes and shut them off and eat them.
So you already kind of said you'd take crab over chicken, but when anyone describes how a foreign meat tastes, they would say, "Oh, it tastes like chicken." So what does crab taste like?
Not like chicken.
Not like chicken.
I mean, I would guess it probably. Have you ever eaten like snow crab or anything like that?
Nope.
So you never eat any kind of crab?
Crab ragoon.
Crab raccoon. What?
Ragoon, like the Chinese food, crab ragoons.
Yeah.
Nah. So is that like imitation crab meat or something?
Yeah, it's got that
Probably
fish
is.
crab in it.
Yeah, I mean it's somewhere like I don't know. It's like it's kind of like fish, I guess, but it has that like I don't know. Seafood has like a distinct taste though. It's like
Right.
I don't really know how to describe it. It's kind of a shrimpy taste, kind of maybe fish shrimp.
Tastes like
kind of
crab.
somewhere in between there. I don't know. I've never went more than probably a year of my life without eating crab. So
it's like 10 out of 10
for me. Yeah.
So of the wild meats, fish, ducks included in this, is crab at the top of you're like, oh, I can go catch dinner tonight. That's what you're going to go for.
Yeah. It's hard to beat boiled crabs, man. Yeah.
Where's the closest? I need to figure out where the closest place I can go to eat crab is then.
Oh man.
Louisiana.
Probably
just come down
the
here,
ocean.
Man.
It's just the ocean, right?
Unfortunately, we're kind of like the furthest distance from any possible location where that could be.
Right. There's definitely not crabs in the Great Lakes.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe, I would say just come down here.
Okay.
Come down here.
All right, man. We'll set it up. Crabs and mallards.
Nah, you'd be hard pressed to find those down here.
That's true. Crabs and ringnecks.
Probably could find those.
There we go. Nice. So have we ever done the lightning round with you in the past?
No.
Okay. Well, we should do the lightning round then. So the lightning round is quick questions with quick answers, and it helps us know you better as a waterfowl hunter. So we're going to jump right into it. So first off, what kind of gun do you shoot?
I shoot a Benelli. God dang! Why can't I think right now? I'm not good at this.
Super Black Eagle.
I'm Super Black Eagle 3. Yeah. God
Okay.
dang. I just went from shooting a Beretta to shooting a Benelli. So like I was thinking A300 in my head for some reason. I was like, that's not right.
Yep. And what shot size do you use for ducks?
Typically number 4 shot.
Okay. Steel or bismuth?
Bismuth.
Okay. And then for goose, do you hunt goose much down in Louisiana?
Not too much. I would probably shoot the same thing for goose.
Okay. When's the last time you shot a goose?
Been a while. Yeah, probably a couple of years.
Shoot,
last
man,
year,
we'll have to get
something
you
like
up
that.
here for some geese. That's
I shot one
thing
last
got,
year.
so.
I shot one last year. Opening day, I shot a beautiful blue.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
snow goose. Nice.
So
That's right.
fake goose. Okay, got it. Not a real goose.
Not a Canada goose.
The last
Yep.
time I shot a Canada was probably 10 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
There. Nice. What is your favorite habitat for hunting waterfowl?
Saltwater marsh.
And what's your favorite bird?
Gadwall.
That's a
Just
2 in a
because of
row
their-
on the Gadwalls, by the way.
No, it was Widgeon with.
Oh, you're right. He was Widgeon. You're right.
Yeah, Widgeon with Alec. But it is
Yep.
2 odd ones, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gadwall is maybe the oddest pick that we've ever had.
I don't know.
No offense, Nate. I don't see, but not very many people have a high opinion of Gadwall. Is what kind of what I'm saying.
I like
What is it about the Gadwall for you? Is it the taste?
Well, my answer came followed by the saltwater marsh question. So I answered saltwater marsh. The absolute best duck hunting in my eyes is hunting from a layout blind in the saltwater marsh and watching gadwall come from the stratosphere on a sunny day and just coming straight down vertical. So it's the way that they work. It's the way that they come in.
Definitely. And that's different. I think that's different in different parts of the country. Because the way you're saying they work in for you, I've seen where they seem like they want to spin circles and then go land 100 yards away more times than not.
Anytime I'm hunting over a major food source, I find that that's kind of how gadwall act. They for some reason they're just weird, and then they want to be by other birds. They want to be by kind of like where the raft is, where there's like a raft of birds sitting over there. They always kind of want to go in there with them. They're tougher out in the freshwater marshes and stuff, but in the saltwater marshes, for some reason, those loafing birds that are just coming in there to rest, I mean, they just decoy so well, man.
So what would you say to the people that call them gut ducks?
Call them what?
Gut. You never heard anyone call a gadwall a gut duck?
No.
Okay. Well, it's not a term of endearment. Have you heard that, Hunter?
Yeah. Usually people call them gut ducks because they say that they're like the worst tasting dabbler. And that they always say they have like those like weird tasting gadwalls, and that's why everybody calls them gut ducks.
I mean, I just think people don't know how to cook.
There's a good answer. I honestly, I tend to agree with you. I don't think that, I think that a good cook can, work some magic. So for sure.
Yeah.
And if you know how to cook crabs, I mean, I guess you know how to cook gut ducks. Probably not a good comparison.
It's actually not that hard to cook duck. I think that people overdo it, so.
Right.
Well, weren't you saying at the, I don't remember if we were on the podcast for the Q&A or not Q&A for the Wood Duck Wisdom, or if we were talking afterwards that you eat coot too, mud hen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like, is that like a once a year thing, or is it like, oh, there's nothing going on, I'm going to shoot the coot in the decoy, so I have dinner tonight?
I don't know. I usually keep like a gallon Ziploc bag full every year, and we'll make like a stew or a gumbo with it. It makes a really good gravy. It really does. A lot of the old men around here, they'll tell you that, you can keep all the ducks, bring me some coots, which down here we call them poodoos or poodos, depending on what region you're from. And, like my dad, for example, I mean, he'll say, you can keep all the ducks, bring me some poodoo, so.
You gotta go shoot them in your poru.
Jesus Christ, man.
We're just hoping Nate doesn't leave early for this podcast. Walk away.
That's not a term of endearment right there.
So, all right.
Right.
So now that we talked about 2 birds that are like generally considered by most people not in Louisiana as being kind of, I mean, gadwalls are called gut ducks, and coots aren't even worth shooting in most of the country to most people, right? Do you guys have neutral rats there like they do in Florida in your guys' marshes?
Oh yeah, full of them.
Do you eat those too? Or are those off limits?
Yeah, we eat those.
I think the answer here is that people from Louisiana just know how to cook better than anybody. I mean, you guys have all the unique recipes, gumbo. I remember I met this guy, and I think I was in high school, and he was from Louisiana, and like I blew his mind because he's like, "You've never had gumbo?" I'm like, "No." He's like, jambalaya. I'm like, never heard of it. Just like, he's just going through a list of foods I've never heard. But you guys have all these, I mean, Cajun foods. I don't know why I did air quotes because they are actually Cajun. It's like, the proper term for it, I think. But, but you guys have like a whole culture and food, based around being good cooks, it seems like. So it's probably not a surprise that they're able to, work all that stuff into a good palatable food.
Yeah, cooking is something that is a big tradition for us down here. We started at a young age at cooking. I mean, I could remember being a kid where I was, walking around in the neighborhood shooting squirrels, and I'd come home and my dad would be like, "Go cook them on a fire, show me what you got." And he'd give me a roll of aluminum foil and some seasoning and some butter and be like, get after it. And I'd cook over the fire like that. And I mean, I can remember also, boiling crawfish, catching them in the ditch right there by the house and boil them in the yard right there. And it starts very young. I could remember standing on a chair next to my great grandma while she was making a gumbo. I mean, food is something that whatever it is, whatever we're celebrating, whenever we're getting together, it's usually over some kind of food. Louisiana's got a rich food culture.
So if you could kind of break down, like, the traditional kind of most popular, I don't even know how to ask the question because I don't know what they are. You got gumbo and jambalaya, but like, I'm sure there's some other ones I'm missing on that list, but, can you break those down? Like, what makes them what they are? And like, how does that play into your cooking waterfowl?
Well, there's different styles down here now. Yeah, mostly there's a bunch of different styles. I could sit here and go and give you all the different genders of cooking and act like it's, on a spectrum, right? But really, we're just going to say that it's Cajun and there's Creole, right?
Okay.
And
so those are different.
They're a little bit different styles there. So your Cajun style is, it's probably easier for me to explain the Creole. So Creole is literally just, they cook with more tomatoes. Like things are a little bit more red, you find. So like your gumbo would have tomatoes in it. They would eat their gumbo over okra instead of rice a lot of times. Whereas like the Cajuns don't usually put tomatoes in their gumbo and they eat it over rice. Same thing with like the jambalaya. A red jambalaya is more of a Creole style jambalaya, whereas a brown jambalaya is more of a Cajun jambalaya. And
so you're saying that it's a style or it's a type of, it's a people group, Creole.
It's a culture. It's a culture.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
a culture. So are you Cajun or are you Creole?
So I'm Cajun. So most of the Creole culture is like the black culture from down here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of, those influences just from different parts of the world. Whereas like Cajuns, came from, France more or less and introduced their style into this, to the Creole style cooking. And kind of gave it its own little twist and kind of became its own thing. I'd say the Cajun style is a little bit more simple. It's pretty much always like a roux based dish. You start with a roux, which is just, oil and flour equal parts, brown down and, until it gets to that chocolate color or whatever it is you're cooking. Sometimes it can be a little bit lighter. Like if you're cooking like an étouffée, maybe a little bit lighter. If you're
so is that like a gravy? The oil
it's like
and
a gravy.
flour?
We call it a base. It's a gravy though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like when you start a gumbo, you start with a roux. You brown that in the, in the bottom of the pot there. And then you add your stock or your water, whatever you're cooking with. And then it becomes like a brown soup kind of,
So
But
this is something
it's not
I've
a gumbo
always,
if it doesn't have a roux.
okay. So this is something I've always wondered because I'm from the Midwest, just like Jordan, and we have chili and there's like 70,000 different styles of chili. What's the difference between chili and jambalaya?
Oh,
there we
go. It's not even close. I mean,
they're just like
different dishes.
They're like, the ingredients are different.
First off, we got to break down what a chili is then, because like you said, everybody has like a standard chili. Let's just break that down. Hamburger meat, beans, tomato base, and then that's like a normal chili.
And
but
none
then,
of that is in jambalaya.
Okay.
Not a single one of those.
So what's in? Yeah. So
jambalaya.
I don't want to take away from your question here.
No. Jambalaya is a lot of times you'll start with cooking some bacon in the bottom of a cast iron pot. Kind of coats the pot, or they'll have like some tasso or something like that, and then they'll have pork in there. You might have pieces of just pork in there, chicken. You'll have sausage in there, and you brown all of that down, and all of like the burnt edges on all of these meats come together, and they just blend together to make a wonderful dish. You add.
So is it a soup, or is it something different?
No. So the only liquids that you add, the only reason for the liquid is for whenever you add rice, the rice absorbs all of that, all those juices, and it becomes almost like a dirty rice almost. It kind of resembles like a dirty rice kind of.
Okay.
But I think it's funny.
Just way more flavor.
It's like so obvious that we have no idea what we're talking about. Like Jordan and I have no idea.
It's hard for me to explain it too, because like I have to understand that like y'all are not from here, right? So if I was explaining to someone that's from here, it'd be a lot easier. I feel like I'm missing stuff here.
Is it normal to add wild game to that, or is it just something that hunters do, or is that part of the culture to add wild game to those as well?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of dishes down here that we make with wild game, like gumbo, for example. Like I'll make a coot gumbo a lot of times, where the meat in the gumbo is coot. So it's really not unusual for us to use wild game. I mean, that's what the tradition was. I mean, you got to think back then, they didn't have supermarkets and stuff like that. They just kind of threw whatever they could get their hands on in there. So
did you, I'm already forgetting what you talked about. So did you tell us about a jambalaya or a gumbo first?
Jambalaya first. Yeah.
Okay. So jambalaya. So what's the difference between the gumbo and the jambalaya?
Jambalaya, you don't make a roux. So all you're doing is browning your meat, and then you add like your stock to it, chicken stock or something like that. Some people add water. I choose chicken stock, as a replacement for water for pretty much everything that I cook. You add that in there, you simmer that for a while, cook down that meat till it gets real tender. Then you add your rice to it. The rice absorbs all of those juices. You add a bunch of rice in there. And so what you end up with is like a real meaty, like dirty rice with so much flavor, because the best jambalayas come out of a cast iron pot, which, I don't know if y'all cook with cast ironware, but that is the absolute best, pot to cook out of, but if you're making a gumbo, we use what we call a Magnolite pot. Most of the time it's aluminum, pot that, a lot of, they don't even make that brand anymore, but we got a lot of families that have passed them down generation to generation. But your gumbo starts with a roux, so it's just a little bit different, and it's like a soup more than it is, like the other one's like a drier rice dish. It's not like a soup. It's just like, it's more pasty, I guess. Whereas the gumbo is like a soup. You could take a spoon and sip it like soup,
Mm-hmm.
Now some people do make a thicker gumbo. I'm more of a fan of a soupier gumbo. I like my gumbo where it almost eats like a soup with rice,
The problem with the cast iron is like I don't know who thought cast irons were a good idea. I mean, you said it's the best thing to cook with, but like you can't even clean it with soap, and like you gotta like scrub it with salt and like all kinds of weird stuff. I mean,
yeah, but the flavors, man.
You think it's the flavor? The flavor comes from the cast iron.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Distributes the heat really well too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, where does the word gumbo come? Because like it's such a weird word, and when I hear the word, I don't think like good food. And like it just sounds like I don't know. I think of like bubble gum or something.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where the word originated from. I just know it's good.
You just know it's good food.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to make some. I need to do it, but it's kind of interesting how that's, so defined in your culture in Louisiana, like specifically. And
yeah, it is.
And all that.
It's a wonderful dish. And if you haven't, you said you've never had gumbo, right?
I've never had either one.
Oh man. Come on, man. Get on that plane. Come on.
Hunter, have you had either one?
I have. I've had I've had crab, jambalaya, and gumbo. But I will say that the the gumbo that I had was made by it's like a local, like a regional chain restaurant type of a thing. And the guy came from Louisiana, but it's a chain restaurant. So I don't know if it's like as authentic as it
Real?
could be. Yeah, it's the best way to say that, right? Because
It's
a
like having
transplant.
Taco Bell and said you had Mexican food.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite that bad, but it's like you can tell it definitely has like some of the Midwest flavoring into it that I wouldn't expect it to be there.
I made Elliot a gumbo.
What do you think?
He thought it was good. I thought it was a terrible gumbo. I wasn't satisfied with it. See, where I'm from, if something is no good, we say it belongs in a long grass. So I told Elliot I made him a long grass gumbo. In other words, we go dump that in the grass on the side of the yard, whenever it's no good. So I told him it was a long grass gumbo. I didn't particularly like it. I thought it came out a little bit too light colored. Like it's a little bit too blonde, I would say. I like more of a darker gumbo.
So not enough grease?
No, it wasn't. The roux wasn't dark enough. Yeah, it didn't really meld right together. I'm so used to cooking over my gas stove that, man, it was just taking a long time to make the roux with his electric stove. And I was like, man, this is just not cooking fast enough. And everybody was kind of waiting around. We kind of started it late. And I was like, you know what? It's just going to be a blonde gumbo. And then, yeah, it didn't come out as good as I wanted it to. But he said he liked it.
Awesome. So, let's kind of change it. Well, I guess one last question on the subject before we move on. So, like, if you had to pick one, like, wild game Cajun food, like, to make, like, what would be your suggestion?
I would say wild game Cajun dish. Probably a gumbo. Probably a gumbo. A duck. I would say a duck and andouille gumbo would probably be good.
What's andouille?
It's like sausage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That sounds good. That sounds pretty good. Yeah. So, like in browning that, because I'm pretty specific about, like, I think most waterfowlers that are a good cook anyway are pretty specific about how they like to cook their mallard, or whatever duck it is you're cooking. But obviously it's keeping it pretty light colored, as far as.
Well, if you're cooking you're cooking it down in a gumbo, this is my rule of thumb on pretty much any red meat wild game. You either gotta barely cook it, or you gotta cook it till it falls apart. And so with the gumbo, you wanna put your ducks in and let it cook for a while until that meat just starts to fall apart. So
it's in the cast iron for that long.
For a gumbo, no, I do not make my gumbo in a cast iron. I have a pot called a Magnolite pot, and I think it's aluminum. It's a cast aluminum pot. You probably wouldn't be able to get your hands on one of those. But they do have a brand called McWare that still makes them. It's very similar. I could shoot you a link after this, but
sure,
yeah, it's a good pot.
Okay, so you just brown it in a pot, kind of like a slow cooker. No,
so you make the roux. You start off with making the roux. Right? I can go through the whole. It's very simple.
Go for it, man. I'm interested.
See, I kind of do everything in separate pans and I bring it together. A lot of people will say, "Look, there are traditional Cajuns that will slap me right upside my head, like I just said po roux for p-roll." All right, if I tell them I use multiple pots and pans to make my gumbo, because there's like a rule of thumb. Everything is done in the same pot, right? I do it a little bit different. So I start off making the roux in the pot that we're going to be in. All right. In the end. All right. So I make the roux in there, make my roux. And on the side, I saute all of my vegetables. I mean, all of my meats that are going in there in another pan. So like my sausage, I might start with, then I'll throw the ducks in there, brown that sort of thing. On another pot, I have my stock simmering. All right. All of the stock that's going in there is already simmering on the stove right there.
Stock is just like beef stock.
I use chicken stock. You can use beef stock. I would rather chicken stock. It comes out a little bit better, I find. So after I saute my meat in that pan, I take it out. I put it on the side. I take my vegetables, throw my vegetables in there, soften up my vegetables real good. Then I'll take that and I'll put it into the roux. All right. That's whenever it's time to start bringing it all together. Throw a little bit of that warm stock in the bottom of that sauteed pan that I sauteed the vegetables and the meat in. Get all of them brown burnt bits and stuff off the bottom of that pan. Make sure that all goes in the pot too. Mix your vegetables up with your roux real good. Make sure it all kind of melts together. And then you start.
What vegetables are you using?
There's a thing called a trinity, right? It's onions, bell pepper, and celery. The Holy Trinity.
Okay.
All right. So
just like from the Bible.
Just like from the Bible, yeah. You throw that in there, and then you slowly start to bring a little bit of your stock in there. You just slowly bring it together. You want that to meld together real good. You bring it together, bring it together. And then after you get that up to a boil, you bring it to simmer. You let that simmer for a while till it all comes together real good. And then you go ahead and put your meat in there, and you let that cook for a few hours on the stove. Pretty much it. You could add whatever seasonings you want in there. That sort of thing. I recommend, have garlic in there too. It's always good to have all that, but that's pretty much all there is to it, man. It's just low and slow, bro.
Okay. All right. I might just try it. I might just try to make something. So
FaceTime me, man. I'll step you through it.
I don't know about the celery though. I'm not really like a fan of cooked celery.
It cooks out, man. You're talking about a 4-hour dish here, dude.
So what? It just gets soft and mushy?
You won't even know it's in there.
So why even put it there?
Because it flavors that gumbo. If celery's not in there, it's not a gumbo.
See, celery doesn't have a good taste.
You're not even gonna know it's there at the end. But it belongs. It belongs. Just trust the process.
Right. Sure. So I'm just saying, maybe like the best gumbo would be like no celery.
It's not.
That's not okay. I'll take your word for it.
Come on, man.
I'm just baffled that it adds anything to the actual dish.
Just do what the ancestors tell you, bro.
So we got a buddy, and we've been talking about it here and there. And his holy trinity for cooking is Kraft macaroni,
merganser,
and shredded merganser.
That's got to be fake, right?
No, it's Zach. It's young Padawan. He was the MC for Wood Duck Wisdom, and that's his go-to dish.
Is mergan cheese.
That's like eating Friskies out of the can. Like just cat food.
It's worse. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have to have like a get together, and you'll make like jambalaya, and he'll make Kraft macaroni and shredded merg, and we'll have a challenge to see which one's better.
And we'll go dump that in the long grass after.
Right? Yeah. There we go. He swears by it though. He says it's the best.
I'll try it. I'll try it. If you try celery in your gumbo, I'll try it.
I was gonna say
the mac
maybe
and
he's
fish.
Just missing celery, and that'll make his dish good.
Mac and fish is not really my thing.
Right. So, how was your duck season?
No, I mean, pretty bad, to be honest. It started off hot and then just kind of died from there. I don't know, man. It was honestly probably the worst duck season I've ever experienced, and that it all had to do with the drought, in my opinion. The drought allowed a lot of salt water into our brackish marshes, killed a lot of our food source, and birds were just really avoiding our area.
Did we talk about that on like post Wood Duck Wisdom, or did we talk about it on the Wood Duck Wisdom?
I think we talked about it
because you're saying I think it was
after,
post.
Yeah.
You're talking about how down there the river was flowing backwards, right?
Yeah. At one point, we had salt water coming up the Mississippi River. It literally was flowing backwards, and I'd never seen that in my life. At one point during teal season, I remember being on the Mississippi River and looking down, and you could see fish like 10 feet down in the river. And that is usually a muddy river. That's usually, like trying to look through a glass of chocolate milk. But we're looking down. It was like, I'm looking at fish down there, and my guy's like, man, look, you see them fish down there? And I was like, yeah, that look like some minnows right there. He goes, no, that's like speckled trout. And I'm like, whoa. So you can see that far down? He's like, yeah, man, it's a different time. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And that salt water was just pumping into our freshwater marshes and just killing everything, man. The salinity level was just way too high. Ducks just don't have anything to eat whenever that happens. And not saying there weren't any ducks down there, because there certainly were. Some guys did really good But then you had to be on them. You had to scout. You had to do your homework. You had to, if you were like me, only had weekends off, it's tough, man. Really tough to stay on birds. I will say though that the guys in the southwestern part of the state probably did better last year than they have, in years past. And I think that's because they had pretty much only food sources this past year, because they have rice fields out there. They have crawfish ponds out there that hold some birds, and their marshes just looked a little bit better than ours, it seemed like. So, yeah.
So was that drought mostly like up river from you guys, or was it in your local area, or what was the whole story with the drought?
Well, we just didn't have any rain, and up north too. I mean, up the Flatway, they really didn't have much rain either. So what you had was the Mississippi River at like record lows. I mean, the Mississippi River level was just so low that we had no fresh water being pumped into our marshes at all. And so that the Mississippi River, being low like that is from lack of meltwater, because it was really 2 years into a drought. So they had no meltwater coming down in the spring, to make the level of that river rise. And then on top of that, we had no rain. So, I mean, it's kind of like a lose-lose there.
Right. So, I mean, how does the Mississippi rebound from that? And honestly, both of you guys can probably talk on this, being Mississippi River guys. But, I mean, it just seems like nowadays, I mean, everything from the tiles in the fields all the way down to the ocean, everything just moves faster when it comes to the water. So even if you guys have like flood stage, because last year we were in Kentucky in January, and the river like rose like 16 feet in like a week or something crazy, right? But then the way all the drainage systems work, they just work way faster than your traditional natural way that the river would drain. So it just goes back to what, drought stage, and it just stays there? Or how's that work? I guess I don't fully grasp or understand how the Mississippi can go from being, 16, it can raise like 16, 20 feet. And then, like, how does it maintain that? Or how does it go so low so quickly?
It's totally different up here by me than it is down by him, because we're up in the lock system. So our river levels, while it is dictated on rain and on the spring snow melt, and if we get a big rain event, we do have the tiles as a problem, and so is concrete, because concrete doesn't absorb water. It just runs it right back off into the river. And so it does cause the river to like shoot up and then come back down really fast when we do get rain events, more so than it used to. But since we have the lock and dam system up here, and I'm kind of mid locks, because I think the locks stop somewhere around St. Louis, if I remember right. And so I'm kind of on the upper part, midway through the lock and dam system. So it's pretty well controlled through here. So that's why our river levels stay decently consistent within a couple feet, right? Where I'm at. There can be some years where it'll be real low, and then we'll get a spring flood that'll come up 20 feet. But like that's a huge swing. That doesn't happen every year. Like right now, just for a local gauge, my local gauge says 11, like just over 11 and a half feet. And then last year during duck season, when you were here, Jordan, it was at 9.25 foot. So like it only changed two feet. And that was like considered a decently large change, which is different from where I assume it's down by Nate, because you guys don't have locks down there.
Right. Yeah. It's 100% dependent upon Mother Nature. What we get down here.
So do you have a big shift? Like, cause where we're at in Kentucky last year, it's obviously it's south of all the lock and dam system. We were there, and it in a week it raised 16 feet or something that seems almost unbelievable from an outside perspective, but then it seems like it goes back, because you guys aren't at flood stage right now, Nate, are you?
No, I don't believe we are, but it is up right now. We're looking pretty good right now. The river's at a good level right now. It's still, I would say, from a historical level, it's still pretty low, but it's coming up. So it looks a lot better than last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So things are looking up on that front.
Yeah. Right. And the other thing you got to keep in mind with like where we were in Kentucky is that's right where the Ohio and the Mississippi come in together. And so you're getting two really, like, I mean, obviously it's all the Mississippi watershed, but that's just magnifies the problem.
Okay. Is it just those two rivers coming in together right there?
Yeah, we were actually hunting right off the Ohio, technically where we were at. And so you're getting both of those. And like down there, I mean, I've been down where the river stage was at like 70 feet. And I've also been down and hunted the river where it's at 6 foot. So like, it's crazy how much the water will change right there. And it just depends on like the rain and stuff like that for them. Because I don't know if the Ohio has some locks in it, doesn't it? I don't really know. You'd probably know more about that.
It does, yeah.
But it does flood.
Yeah, it does
bad.
have some locks in it, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have swings like that. We don't have 60-foot swings or anything. I mean, we're dealing with mostly like the teens to like 20s and, feet stage and that sort of things, because we have spillways down here where if the river gets a little bit too high, we open up spillways that spill out into our lakes and stuff. They go out to the Gulf. So it's just ways to kind of relieve it. You know what I mean?
So with the foot gauge that they have, I mean, what's that referencing? Because 0 is too low, right? But it's not like what's 0 referencing?
It depends on
sure about that. That's not a question for me.
It depends on the gauge and like the gauge location. So like, one gauge, and this is why I have notes going back years on gauges and where I can get when river gauges are on certain levels. Because one pool might have a river gauge that reads 9 foot, and then there's actually a pool like, I don't know, hour south, we'll just call it, where its river gauge reads 530 feet. And then it'll go from 530 to 30 feet or 536 feet. It's just like, it'll change by 3 feet, but it's just the way that the gauge reads, it reads that. I don't know if it's reading like above sea level or what it's reading, but the gauges aren't all like unanimous where like 0 is no river.
They're not uniform.
Yeah. So they're just kind of,
that seems
based off
unusual.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Yeah. I've just, I've heard some stuff, and read some stuff and watched some like YouTube documentaries talking about like the different like, water levels of the Mississippi. And, I don't know how much to read into it being an outsider. But some of those documentary type videos I was watching were saying like, it's like an issue, that the Mississippi is like historically low and there's really not a solution to it. And I know, Nate, you're talking about that drought the last couple years, and hopefully it's back up. But like, what is the long term on that? Is it looking up, or is it like some type of problem that still needs to be solved?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that we can necessarily do, at least that I know of. As far as I know, it's weather dependent.
It's just rain.
Yeah, it's just rain. It's rain, snow. It's whatever. We're completely dependent upon what happens up the river. If there's a lot of snow melt, we'll have a high river. So
okay.
And rain does contribute. Rain is a contributing factor, but it's a smaller factor than snow melt.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. All right, Hunter.
Yeah.
Nate. It's time to talk about your guys' favorite diver, the ruddy duck. No, it's after Wood Duck Wisdom, guys. We sat in this chat, and I had to like sit there and like twiddle my thumbs while Nate and Hunter swooned over their love for the canvasback. It was almost enough to make me sick. All right, then you're not allowed to shoot one this year. I'm just kidding. I've never shot a canvasback. So hopefully this is the year, because I'll be on the Mississippi more. But you guys did, Hunter and Nate, you guys talked about it so much that we need to, I know that there's some of the subject that we need to cover on this podcast as well. But I'm going to have to turn it over to Hunter, because I know so little about canvasbacks, that I just, I'd be calling canvasbacks porus and gumbalayas and who knows what. So,
all right,
take the floor, Hunter.
All right. So my first question for you, Nate, is when you hunt canvasbacks, are you hunting them from a shoreline, a boat blind, or a layout boat?
Yes.
So
I mean, all of the above. So we've hunted them from boat blinds. We've hunted them from layout boats. We've hunted them from the bank. We kind of base that on, where are they sitting at? And we kind of go from there. We figure out how close we can get to them, based on where they are, and whatever vessel we have to bring that particular day, we'll do it, So most of the time, though, we're hunting from layout boats, I would say.
Okay. So we've noticed here where we hunt out of layouts, and I don't know if it's the canvasbacks tend to fly higher than like our buffalo heads and golden eyes and other stuff like that. And so we find that they pick out the layout boats. Do you guys notice something similar compared to when we hunt them from the shoreline?
No, but maybe we have more floating vegetation than y'all do. So they have so much more that they're looking at when they fly over where we hunt them at. They're looking at floating. We call them lilies down there. They're water hyacinths. So they float around there. Water hyacinths are floating in these mats all over the place, and they're scattered islands of marsh all out there, floating islands of marsh. So they can't pick us out any differently than they're picking out those. So
you're not hunting them out of like, I'm sorry,
open water? No.
So you guys are hunting them out of like
marsh,
like layout boats, like out of like a refuge runner or like something like that, not out of like a open water style.
No, not typical.
So they're hunting them out of pogroos.
We do hunt them out of pirogues now, Jordan. Sometimes we do, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, look, I will go out in the middle of a lake and hunt them from time to time. But still, even in our lakes, we have sometimes there's like a piece of broken off marsh that just floats out into our lakes. And so it's not unusual to see like a patch of grass out in the middle of the open water. So they don't get nervous about it at all. I mean, they'll land 5 feet from us, you know.
I wish.
It's nice.
Yeah. All right. So that was my first question. The second thing is food source. When they're down by you, what food are you looking for? Or are you hunting them on? Are you not hunting food?
They're eating the subaquatic vegetations down there. There is some wild celery down there. There's a bunch of different other aquatic vegetations. I wish I was more educated on exactly what they're eating. But mostly, and the reason why I'm not is because mostly we're just hunting where they are. Where we see them at, that's where we hunt them. So I don't really get all caught up in, you know, what they're eating and why they're there, because a lot of times they're just trying to get away from where the boat blinds are. They're getting away from where the hunters are a lot of times. And so we sneak over there with those little small boats and we get them where they're not expecting hunters to be. So, yeah.
Not to derail the diver talk too much, but you said boat blinds, and that brings me to what's your opinion on those? Because everybody has a differing opinion on boat blinds.
They have their place. I don't really have much of an opinion on it. You know, they have their place. I choose not to use them, but
right.
I do know people who hunt out of, you know, pop-up blinds, and they do very well, you know, but you have to build it right. You know, you can't just slap some fast grass on the side of your boat and expect to go out there and kill a bunch of ducks, you know, at least where I'm at, right. You know, you gotta close that baby up, you know, and make it blend in with its surroundings. So,
yeah.
See, this is what does.
You're right. Everything has its place, and boat blinds, their place is at the bottom of the totem pole.
See, this is what doesn't make sense to me with you, Jordan, is that you're just fine with sitting in the middle of a field in an A-frame, but sitting in the middle of the water in a boat blind just seems like an irrational thought to you. They're the same thing.
Well, I'm just saying that I hunted out of my own boat blind. I've hunted out of everybody else's boat blinds, and is never as successful as hunting out of an A-frame.
I just don't find that they get in tight like they do.
That's right.
You know,
exactly.
And I've had some really good hunts from a boat blind. What I don't like is sitting there with 3 other guys shoulder to shoulder and having
Sky
to like,
busting.
Yeah, the birds are not necessarily always landing like right in your lap like they do, you know, from the bank, you know, and a smaller body of water. I find a lot of times they land a little bit closer. I like them in tight, you know, that's my way. That's what I like to do. So.
Yeah, I think you're both wrong.
All right, continue with the diver's hunter.
No, man, like those are like
what I say. What I say wrong?
Well, I'm saying that like you can get birds in extremely close to a boat blind. It's a matter of brushing it properly and not putting it in a stupid spot. Like if you're going out to the middle of a lake, throwing an anchor and expecting to shoot birds, like it's just not going to work, right? But there are areas.
See, here's the
boat blinds work.
Yeah, that's what I'm
sure
about,
that there probably is. I guess my only 2 things I'd say is the profile on a boat blind is really usually a lot bigger than your comparison was like an A-frame. It's bigger and taller compared to what it's around most of the time. I'm sure there's situations where you can get up tight against, cattails or something else and make it blend in or whatever kind of naturals around you. But it doesn't seem like that solution is provided even the majority of the time. So even a small percentage of the time, it just seems unlikely to have that opportunity for where the birds are, where you scout them, and have everything come together.
So yeah,
the second thing is that it seems like every time I see a boat blind, it's very rare for like the bottom part of the boat to be covered as well, which I find an issue. Like looking at it, it just, even if you got a camoed boat, it always seems like that shows too. And for me, I think that is part of the issue as well. That's just a theory. I'm not a duck, but
yeah. But think about like where I hunt. Oh, go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
No, what I was saying was, keep in mind when I think boat blind, I think popping up a boat blind in the middle of open, shallow water, because that's where a lot of the guys, hunt with boat blinds where I'm from. Wide open water, down by the Gulf, just pop up a blind out there. You're the only piece of land for miles, and that's, I don't find that ducks really decoy too well over even a good boat blind. Like I've hunted out a really good boat blinds that, man, you can't see anything inside of these blinds at all. And I just don't find the birds want to get inside of 35 yards. Like they hug that outside kind of, they're a little bit wary. Now, what you guys are talking about, blending in with, with natural vegetation and that sort of thing. I mean, to me, that's just a blind. Like that's not even, I don't even call it like a boat blind. I know you're hunting out of the boat, but man, you can blind up really good in a boat, if you're using the natural vegetation that's already there. So I don't have any problem with that.
Because like where I hunt, we're hunting, some of it's Phragmite, some of it's the really tall wild rice. And so what you end up doing is you pop your boat blind, you drive your boat, you're in like 3 or 4 foot of water. You drive your boat 2 or 3 feet back behind the water's edge. So you're driving behind the cover. So you're putting a little bit of cover between you and the open hole. And then your cover is almost as tall as the boat is, or as tall as the blind is. So that little bit that's not camoed in the front is covered by your brush in front. And then you just have the blind to conceal your movement and everything else. And that's where I think that they work. The other place I think they really work here, and there could be an argument that you'd shoot better just going from the shoreline behind you, but where we have like the deeper old river channels where you can pull your boat underneath of a tree line. And so you have like the top weep of the tree, you're underneath of it, and it helps you get out a little bit from the shoreline. Cause like sometimes when you're hunting from the shore, it's hard to like shoot through the tree cover. And so it kind of helps get you away from that. But again, I have a beaver tail boat or blind on my boat, or at least it started life as a beaver tail blind. And so I fold it to one side. It's out of my way. I can go hunt 100 other different ways. And then the one day I need it, I just fold it over and hunt out of it and brush it up.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, see, Jordan thinks I'm the bane of existence.
With it. No, it's not. There's not a problem. It's like, I'm not saying there's a problem. Like, it's not like boat blind people are the problem in duck hunting or like anything like that. I just think it's less effective than other ways. So I just, there was one time where I was hunting out of one, and to be fair, it's not as well put together or brushed in as hunters set up. And I just, out of frustration after another bird did not come within, your 35 yard mark, Nate, I said, I'll never hunt out of a boat blind again. and I've not really stuck to that, but that's the emotion I had during that hunt of repeatedly having birds, that were obviously flaring off my boat blind. So, yeah,
it happens.
All right.
Right.
So going back to the king here, I'm going to redirect the conversation back over to him. When you guys hunt cans,
get it going.
How do they work into a spread? So you set in long lines, you set in like U-shape, just like a normal puddle duck lines for your decoy spreads. What are you setting?
So I would say I do have some long lines, and we have used long lines. We've also, because we don't necessarily hunt in deep water. Our water is usually about 6 foot deep where we hunt our canvas bags. So we don't actually have to put our long lines on one line. we a lot of times will throw them in the formation of a long line, hoping that those other diver species in particular will follow those lines in, So sometimes we'll throw them out for that reason. But for the most part, we just make a pretty good sized raft out in the front and understand that these birds are going to be trying to kind of get to the front of the line. And we kind of shooting them as they're coming across right in front of the blind to kind of get there. So what they'll do a lot of times is they'll just kind of come around and they'll stall out like right over the top of the blind, kind of like, coming in like that. It's usually a good setup. I like just a raft because that's how we see them naturally sitting out there. I don't put a big gap in the middle because a lot of times I find they act funny, man. A lot of times you just got to throw them in a raft. They're not like puddle ducks. They're so different than puddle ducks.
Yeah, I know one of the things that's really hard for people to understand when you set like a diver spread is like puddle ducks tend to not fly over other puddle ducks. So like if they're coming in, they're going to land before the other birds, where divers tend to land over top of the other birds. They want to like get to the front edge of a feed line is typically how it works out. And I know that that's kind of a weird, that took me like literally over a year to like just figure out in my brain. I knew it was true, but I didn't like figure out that's how I had to set a spread for like over a year. And then the other thing is, are you guys setting up crossing shots or are you trying to shoot them in the face?
I like to shoot them in the face.
Yeah, we always set up crossing shots. It's so hard to get them in your face here.
So I like them when they're looking straight at me, just like feet down, right at me, right in my face. That's why I want them. Because I'm not that good at shooting the crossing shots, man. I miss because I don't know, man. It's always been a tough shot for me. Those divers screaming across, man. I can't get the lead right on them, man. I'll sit there and I'll shoot it 1,000 times, and I'm like, man, I am right out front of his beak, and I'm following through, and I don't know why I can't hit this bird,
That's interesting. I've always shot them, the very few times, I shouldn't say I always have, but the very few times I've diver hunted, we've shot them in the face too. And that seems like it'd be way easier than doing crossing shots. Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to touch on, and see what your opinion of this is where you hunt, because Hunter's saying, and we've talked about this before. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast or just over Marco Hunter or some other time when we were together. But Hunter was saying that he doesn't set his puddle ducks up. He doesn't think his puddle ducks will finish over decoys. My experience with puddle ducks is that they don't care. You say you got a little bit different experience, Hunter. Do you set up your puddle? Like, do you find your puddle ducks won't like jump over decoys or land in decoys? Because where I hunt, it just seems that they'll land right in it. That's not even a thought except for with geese.
I'll say I don't think that puddle ducks are necessarily against landing in the other decoys, but diving ducks always land over the decoy. Or they're like you said, they're trying to get right out to the front.
They're trying to gain the feed.
They're trying to gain the feed line, exactly. So what we like to do is throw a raft and kind of put a buffer between where we're sitting at in that spread, and those divers will always kind of come right in front, right to us. They're right in our lap.
Sure.
But no, I've seen puddle ducks land in decoys. I've seen them land, on the inside of decoys, outside, kind of. I like to kind of dictate where they land at, so I kind of give them like a void, kind of in the middle of the spread where I want them to land, and I find they just go there. Shit.
I like them to land belly up usually.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, see, like my point is with like the void is like when you're creating a void for puddle ducks, right? You're trying to create a void, and you're putting decoys on 3 sides of the void, and you want them to come in over the open gap, right? Like that's typically how the conventional wisdom for puddle ducks are.
Puddle ducks, yeah, okay. All right, I thought you were talking about divers. Yeah, puddle ducks, yeah. No, yeah, for sure. I usually put a void in like the center mass of my spread, and I find they go right to it every time. Like just that's where they want to be.
Yeah. And I'm saying that's different from like if you set a U-shaped spread for canvasbacks, they would land on the opposite side of the U. Like they would land where the U is pointing, not on the inside of the U.
Yes, 100%. So we've made this mistake before. One of the biggest mistakes that we ever made. This was a hunt that we had like a lot riding on. Okay. This was a last day of the season. We had 11 guys hunting. Okay. And we made the biggest mistake, man. We set up in a cove in the marsh, like right on the lake shore there. And we just filled that cove in with diver decoys. We just completely filled the cove in. And we were like, they're going to come in here and they're going to stall out right in front of the blinds there. They did not. They came down. They saw that. they had no way to get to the front of the line, and they just bailed every time. They came down, they looked like they were going to do it, and then they bailed. They came down, they bailed over and over and over again until later on in the hunt, we finally took some decoys from the front of the line that was in that little cove area, moved them to the whole opposite side, made a little gap there, and then they started trying to finish a little bit better. But by that time, half of the guys had left. They were like, "Oh, we ain't killing no ducks." They just rolled out, Because sometimes we do that, we'll call a lot of the guys in the community, and say, "Hey, look, we're going to be out there on the public land. We're going to have layout boats. Y'all already planning on going out there. Y'all already know what's going to happen. We're going to have the layout boats out there in the middle, and y'all not going to be killing anything. So just come link up with us, and we're going to all hunt together. We're going to coordinate this the right way." And we botched it, man. We didn't set them up right. You got to have that space between yourself and where you want them to land. You have to have it. Because like you said, if you have that U shape and you put yourself in that U, they're going to come in hot and they're going to go right over the top of you, or they're going to bail out because they see you, one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd have a similar experience. The other thing that I'd say that's different with a canvasback, and I'm curious if this is your experience too, is that where we hunt them, they don't tend to circle. Like when I'm thinking of mallard, they come over the spread and they're going to circle around the spread a couple times. And then you're going to get them to set the wings. When they get right with the wing, come in. Set their wings when they get right with the wind and then come in. Where canvasbacks, what they tend to do when we hunt them is they do like a figure eight pattern in front of us. So no matter how we have the spread set, they're always doing a figure eight in front, and then they'll peel off the corners of the figure eight and then come into the spread. And quite honestly, they'll come in the way of the wind, right? So they'll come in and try to land in the wind. They'll also come and land sideways to the wind. They'll land backwards to the wind. They really don't care. They just want to get in there and feed. But it's just a matter of getting the first couple to commit off that figure eight, and then all of a sudden all of them will start coming. Mm-hmm. Now I'm talking working, a group of a couple hundred canvasbacks at a time. When we have smaller groups, obviously they don't quite do that. But when you're working the bigger flocks, that's what they end up doing. Is that similar to what you've noticed?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. What we have is like our situation is we have some marshy area where we're hunting, and there's a lake that's right next to it. So the birds gain a lot of altitude as they're coming up off the lake, and they get up there kind of high, and they're looking out over the marshes there, the marsh area where we are, and we'll have a nice size spread down there, and we can see immediately that they see our spread. And what they do is they start descending immediately. But especially it depends on the wind direction as to what they do, because a lot of times they'll come straight off that lake, and if the wind direction is right, they will come straight in. They won't even make a pass. They will come straight in. So we get that sometimes. But like you said, a lot of the times, if depending on which way we're facing, they'll come over us. They'll start making that figure eight, like you said. And especially the bigger flocks, those flocks of 100 plus, they take a minute to get in. And like you said, it's like, a lot of times it's like a chain reaction. The first couple of birds react and all the rest of them follow. Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah, that's what I've always.
I've got some amazing footage on the channel, because what we do is, I don't know if this is the way you guys hunt them, but we'll usually have a couple of guys sitting on the side, and we'll have a couple of guys in the layout boats. And I'm over there filming with my big camera, filming the flocks from the side, while some guys are in the blind with GoPros on and stuff like that. So they're getting the two different angles and perspectives of what the birds are doing. But those shots that I'm filming from the side really give you an idea of what they do whenever they're setting up to come in. And it's real fun to watch.
Yeah, we're hoping to get some more shots this year like that with the hunts that we have planned. So it would be cool to be able to do it. But I don't typically, I kind of like partway film my hunts. So I don't really necessarily get to that, take that kind of footage like Jordan does. So, but I do like it. Now, this is a totally separate question. You hunt a lot of like the brackish water and saltwater marshes and stuff. What do you do different, do you think, on your boat because of the salt water versus like what I would do where I'm totally running freshwater? Like you're running a mud motor, right? Like a Pro Drive or something?
No, I'm running an outboard.
So do you have to flush it out every time you're done?
You can. I mean, you can hook up little ears to it and, run it on the garden hose whenever you get home. You can just spray it down with the hose pipe, that sort of thing. Really, it's our boat trailers that they get the brunt of it, our little bolts and stuff like that. If they're not like galvanized bolts, they'll get rusted. Anything that's not stainless or galvanized, it'll get rusted out there. So you just got to be careful as to what you have, what your equipment is. And a lot of our stuff down here, these marine shops, they know, like, hey, it's saltwater down here. So a lot of the stuff just comes standard, with stuff that's corrosion resistant. So, but like, I mean, as far as like really the one thing that always gets rusted for me is my gun and my shells.
I was going to say,
Yeah, it's rough on a gun,
tough.
man. Really rough. You got to clean your gun every day. I mean, you got to break it down. You got to clean it every day. That's the routine. When I get home from hunting, except for when I'm hunting the freshwater marshes, like I hunt my canvasbacks in the freshwater marsh. My saltwater marsh, I reserve that for my gadwall hunts. And we get the bluebills down there in the salt like crazy. I mean, bluebills love our saltwater marshes. But I go on those hunts. I come home and immediately the first thing I do is break down my gun and clean it from top to bottom.
All right.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, that's about all I can stand. I mean, great diver conversation, guys. Canvasbacks truly are the king of ducks. And who am I to say otherwise?
I thought you liked wood ducks, man. Come on.
I know. The true king of the timber.
I got a question for you, Jordan.
Sure, go for it.
What is it about wood ducks that's so special?
It's everything from the way that they actually, we just did an episode about this. It's not going to air yet, but the way that they come into the marsh first morning. I mean, that morning flight is just exhilarating. Wood ducks screeching through the marsh, maple leafing into your set. The way that they taste, I mean, one of the best tasting ducks. Hunter says that they're second to canvasbacks. I've never had a canvasback, so I don't know. But for me, they've always been the best. Breast on, wood duck, on the Traeger, some pork butt seasoning or something similar. Come a little sweet seasoning. Cook it hot and fast, rare. But anyways, it's a delicious duck. It's a beautiful duck. It probably is the most beautiful duck in all of God's creation. I don't know. I mean, do I need to continue? It's just a great duck.
I think
what's not to love
the other thing that we've
duck?
talked about with why they're so like, I don't know, coveted for us, especially. It's like my first hunts when I got into duck hunting were wood duck hunts, and like when you're 12 and there's these freaking birds that are just screaming through the woods and all you have is reaction time to be able to shoot them. And like, it leaves an impression, I guess, it's exciting as a kid. It's kind of quick. So like you're there for an hour and then it's kind of done. And so it's like the perfect thing to get a younger person into. And I think that's part of it. Is there's like an emotional attachment, and they're beautiful and they taste good and they work into spreads weird and all that other fun stuff. But that's why more of it for me. Like,
then they're way better than blue wing too.
Like today, like today, I literally go ahead.
Oh, that's not even debatable.
I would say for me, I've always said about wood ducks, they are the symbol for nostalgia in waterfowl hunting. Like you just said, Hunter, like every kid for the most part started off shooting wood ducks. And that was my story. I mean, I started off my first duck hunts were wood duck hunts for the most part. There was this little spot that we may or may not have supposed to be going whenever we were kids. That might have been trespassing. We'll just say that allegedly. But it was just this little dried up oil pit. I say dried up. It was dried up from the oil, but it had water in it. Rainwater would gather in it. It was oak trees that hung over it. And it was like a little small random pond in the middle of the hardwoods. And it would get a bunch of wood ducks in it. And we'd go out there, me and a couple of friends. And every year we would bust them on the roost out there one time a year. And that was kind of my start, And man, like you said, the wood duck, for me, it's the sound of the wood ducks coming through early in the morning when everything's that cool, crisp. You might have a little fog on the water, that sort of thing. And you hear that first wood duck of the morning. I like that. I do like wood ducks. I can't say I don't.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Better. Are they better or worse tasting than canvasbacks?
I mean, I don't know.
Which one goes better in a jambalaya?
I wouldn't make a duck jambalaya, but
gumbo.
Gumbo, probably the canvasback would probably be better for a gumbo. The darker meats are better in the gumbo, man. They just are. Now, I'm not saying that I would rather eat a canvasback just seared on the stovetop and eat medium rare. I'd probably take a wood duck over the canvasbacks for that.
There we go.
Wrong.
I could be wrong, but that's just my preference. I don't particularly think that any diver is the best. I don't. I think the divers are okay for that sort of meal. I mean, I'll serve them to my buddies, but when it comes to making anything with a gravy, something you're going to cook down in onions or something like that, give me my divers, man. I like divers for that.
And here we are back talking about food.
You heard it here first.
It's always about food whenever I'm on, man.
You heard it here first. King of the Timber, approved by Nate Verdon.
King of the Timber?
King of the Timber. That's that's the slogan for the wood duck. It's King of the Timber.
I like it. The OG.
Yeah. I will say I feel like some people in the South don't necessarily appreciate wood ducks, I think, the same way that other people do, because they have them so readily and so frequently. Whereas like mine and Hunter's situation, we'll have wood ducks for like 2 or 3 weeks and then they're gone. They migrate out. So it's like really cool at the beginning of the season. And then you're like, man, they're gone, and you can't hunt them again till the next year. So it's almost like that distance makes the heart grow fonder. Yeah. And it's true for, wood ducks.
Yeah. And like for us, it's like that with the canvasbacks. We only get our canvasbacks typically in the last month of the season. So, we sit there and wait all year for the canvasbacks to show up. But as far as wood ducks go, I mean, I made one wood duck hunt this year. I think, like you said, I think we do have a lot of wood ducks down here. It's something that we can target pretty much every day of the duck season if we wanted to. We have them. And I think I probably do take them for granted a little bit, but I tell you what we do.
So when you have a bad duck season, why aren't you going after the wood ducks?
I don't know, man. I like wood ducks, but I just, I don't know, man. Maybe I just don't hunt them right, man. Maybe I need to go up there with you one time and see how you hunt them and how they respond to duck calls for you. And like, what do you do in particular for your strategy? Because for us,
sure,
wood duck hunt looks like for us is sit on a slough with no decoys, wait for them to come in, and we shoot them on the water. That's what a wood duck hunt looks like for us. It's probably not the same where you are. But we do have a duck that's kind of replacing our wood duck down here that I think is a future resident that's going to be here for the whole duck season. And I think we're going to get a chance to shoot a bunch of them. And that's the black belly whistling duck. We have an abundance of those things nowadays down here. I remember they kind of showed up around Hurricane Katrina, which was in 2005. It was about the first time I saw them. I remember that summer at my house, we were cleaning up after the hurricane, and I looked up in the tree, and there were 2 ducks sitting in a cypress tree. And I asked my dad, I said, what in the heck is that? And he was like, I don't know. And none of us had seen them before. And then we found out they were black-bellied whistling ducks. And ever since then, there's just more and more and more and more and more of them. They're actually nesting in our wood duck boxes now. We have a good resident wood duck population, but the black belly whistling ducks, they're community nesters. And what they do is they go and they'll lay their eggs with other ducks. And they're just really abundant here. They're taking off. And this past season, they hung around here longer than they ever have. I mean, they were almost into December. We still had black belly whistling ducks. Whereas before the duck season even started, those things were out of here. So that's just every year. It seems they're staying later and later and later into the year. And I think that that's the future. I really feel like our new wood duck is going to be the black belly whistling duck down here. And the thing is,
and how do you feel about it?
They're delicious, Jordan.
They're delicious.
Oh my gosh. Those things are like a farm duck. They're so light colored. Like when you just sear them a little bit on the outside, just eat them medium rare, or rare. Oh my gosh. They're so good, man.
Isn't it a shame though that they don't look near as pretty as a wood duck?
They're not that pretty, but they are delicious, my guy.
That is a huge plus for me when it comes to like a duck. If they don't taste good, then I kind of like, I'm almost like, what's the point? Like, why would anyone shoot a bufflehead?
I don't think they taste bad at all, man. I tried one last year. I made an Instagram video about this last year. So I shot a bufflehead, took it home. I said, you know what? I've heard these things are bad. I said, I've always given these things away. When I shoot one, I find somebody that wants a couple of ducks and I give them to them because I've always heard they were bad. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try this thing for myself. I cut it up, seared it on the stove, took a bite of it. And I said, I don't see what's wrong with it. It tastes just fine to me. I seared it on the stove, salt and pepper and rosemary, and I ate it. And it was delicious. I had no problem with the bufflehead at all. Now, one thing I will say about it is it's about this thin. There's nothing to it. It's a little bitty tiny piece of breast meat. That was my problem with it. It's like probably a little bit smaller, like smaller than a green wing teal breast. So,
yeah, it's like the size of like the breast tenderloins you get out of a mallard. It's seriously like they're pretty small, but you know when you can go out and shoot a 6-man limit of them.
It's almost like I don't know. I kind of feel bad. I kind of felt bad when I was looking at it. It's like, that is a tiny piece of meat. Like,
it's like shooting a dove.
It's not worth it, you know. But I do like them. They're pretty birds, and targeting them, I think, would be fun. I don't do much of it, but I think going out and actually targeting buffleheads one day would probably be a fun affair. So I'm not mad at it.
Good deal. All righty. Well, I feel like this is probably a good place to go ahead and wrap her up. Thanks again, Nate, for coming on. It's always a pleasure getting to hang out and talk ducks. Guys, if you're not following Nate over there on Falling Tide TV on YouTube, then you need to jump over there and check him out, putting out some great content, some great Cajun content. Is that all right to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Not only that, he's over there on Instagram. It's Falling Tide TV on Instagram as well. Anything else you'd like to plug as well, Nate?
No, man, that's it, man. Just go check out Falling Tide TV. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For everybody else, I'm Jordan, Duck and Chronicles, Hunter, the King of the Cans, and Nate from Falling Tide TV. And we'll see you guys on the next one.